All right. Welcome to another edition of Shabbat Lounge. This is Matt.
And Jake here.
Jake, how you doing?
I'm well.
Good.
And
good.
you?
I'm good.
Good.
Doing good. Happy this spring. It's green and
rainy.
Yeah, and it's not brown and burned up and 100 degrees. So
not yet.
Middle of June, I will take it for North Texas. So I hear El Nino's coming.
It's right on our doorstep.
Yeah. Well, we want to start off by thanking all of the folks that are consistently in the chat with us. Blessed and Blooming, Homestead, Shraka, and KMSR 1700 AM, Beartron, Christina from the UK, Psalm 119, Amanda Biscoff, and Ba Eddie, and Humble 33. Consistently in there, and I apologize if there's anyone I left out, but always, if there's something you want us to pray about, prayer requests, put those kinds of things in there. So Jake, what else do they need to know?
Well, if you feel left out, show up more often and your name will get added to that list.
That's right.
So
eventually,
maybe. And so we just like and subscribe and share this with someone if you find something useful in it, and tell people about it. Tell people to read their Bibles and learn these stories for themselves. And for your Christian brothers and sisters, welcome them to Sabbath Lounge also, if you can. So
yeah.
And then Matt, you're going to bring up some Sabbath Lounge and plug some interesting things we have going on, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to so let me pop this. Let me change our screen. So when you go to sabbathlounge.com, you will see there's two books here. I have Becoming Jacob has been out for a while, and so there's that book. And then Jake and I are actually working on a book together, and so we're offering a free ebook. And so if you click on that, if you're not on our mailing list, it's time that you subscribe. And if you come down here and just type in your email address and then click the lounge, you will receive, or you should receive, an automatic reply back with a download, and it will take you to this page, which is on our website, and it's back to the book, and it's got a table of contents and some information about the book.
Yeah.
So forthcoming book that we've been working on, and it's things that we've talked about on our podcast, and we're just kind of put it all in one place.
Yeah, it's kind of the topic is kind of the wedding language, and the importance of if you've ever heard our discussion on the cup of bitter waters, it's kind of following that theme. So
yep. And so we would like it to come out sometime soon, but I don't know. It just kind of depends on what we can get done,
right?
Kind of thing. So definitely, it's taken a minute, and but rightfully so. So when I write, I find that I write some stuff, edit some stuff, and then was I not sharing that? Oops. So
it'll look like this.
Yeah. I go back and forth on sometimes I write, have to walk away from it, come back to it. But yes, it's got a table of contents that lets you jump into different sections. So if you wanted to go, straight to a section, you could. It doesn't jump back up to the top though. But you can. It's just a PDF that you can scroll through, and if you wanted to, you could probably put this in your books on your phone and read this like an ebook on your phone.
Right.
But it's only like 18 pages, so it didn't take you very long. So, but that's...
So yes, to just so we're clear, this is just an excerpt from the book. The actual book will be longer than this.
Yes. Yeah. This is just a section that pretty much is, to me, the crux of the book.
Just a wet your whistle.
Yeah. And so the other thing we're asking is, we've made a lot of episodes. I think technically we might have like 300 episodes or something floating out there in the ether, which is crazy.
Well, either we do or we don't.
Yeah.
So
either we do or don't. And so we're asking for people to go over here. So if you go to sabbathlounge.com and then you click on about us, there's a contact, there's a voicemail. If you click on the voicemail page, it'll take you to here. And we would like you to send us some voicemails, and you can just record and we'll send it to us. And we'd like to start working in some of your comments and things you might have to say into make it a little more interactive into what we do. So
That's right.
No prize other than we'll put your voice on the air. If you don't want us to use your voice, just say that up front. Hey, don't use this.
Yeah. But still, it would be great to hear from you. So go ahead and send that voicemail anyway.
Yeah. And you can always send us an email at sabbathlounge@gmail.com. We also actually have sabbathlounge@sabbathlounge.com as well. So I kind of forgot we had that email.
So there's basically no way not to contact us.
That's right. Except you just getting in the way and not making it happen.
Right.
So as some of you know, we've been going through the Torah and looking at some commonalities. This all started with something we did a while back called Christians Follow Torah.
Right. Yeah, so the concept there is that we do share a lot in common with our Christian brothers and sisters. And when we come to Torah, we tend to forget all that and push it aside and go, no, they lied to us and, we're better than that now. And but in reality, they get a lot of things right, and we could be doing better to hold on to some of the things that they got right when we come into this walk. And so this is kind of showing where we have some commonality, a way to kind of talk to people that instead of arguing all the time, we can see where we find common ground, and then that gives a fertile bed of soil for which to plant seeds instead of rocky aggregate soil.
Good word. It kind of shows commonality too, and showing other folks that there's a lot of Torah you keep. And they'll be like, I don't keep Torah. Actually, you keep this and this and this and this. So
right.
And if nothing else, it should be able to make them think, and maybe that might be something they hadn't thought about.
Yeah, it turns the Torah into something not so scary and crazy that you're doing.
Yeah. So we'll kind of flip back and forth through these. So we're in episode 9, technically, of this series, and we're going through the Book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy has so many. This was the most efficient way to do it. Just highlight the ones that seem obvious, and we want to go over those.
Yep. So I guess I'll read first. This is Deuteronomy 6. Let's start in verse 2. Skip that first one. So as long as you live, you, your children, and your grandchildren must fear Yahweh your Elohim. All of you must obey all his laws and commands that I'm giving you. You will live a long time. Listen, Israel, and be careful to obey these laws. Then things will go well for you, and your population will increase in a land flowing with milk and honey, as Yahweh Elohim of your ancestors promised you. Let's separate those.
Yeah.
So we'll do verse 4 next. But as far as this one goes, what kind of stood out to you here, Matt?
Well, I think most Americans and most, not even necessarily Americans, but Christians around the world have this belief that you should fear Yah with everything you have, and that there are things you're supposed to obey, and if you obey, there's a blessing that comes from it, and it's almost like the prosperity gospel. I don't think that's what this is saying, but there is some truth to that idea that if we do the right thing, it is definitely going to be lead to prosperity for us. If nothing else, the eternal reward that we get. It may not be on this earth, but I do believe lots of people share this in common.
Yeah, the things will go well for you. The land flowing with milk and honey. I mean, I think we metaphorize if that's a word.
Mhm.
Those kind of things, and kind of show the principle of that playing out. And
Mhm.
we're told about those principles in church. I was anyway growing up, and
Yeah.
this one here is interesting to me. Listen, Israel, and be careful to obey these laws. I think from our church background, I might say, well, it's funny because growing up in church is different than coming to Torah and then talking to people you grew up with in church, right?
Mhm.
Because all of a sudden somehow the theology changes, but I think that's more in for the purpose of winning an argument
Yeah.
than anything. So here, like growing up, yeah, we're Israel, right?
Mhm.
But then when you come to Torah, Israel becomes something else to the people you're talked to. Israel becomes, well, no, that was for them, Israel, when they come into the land, right?
Mhm.
And so they'll, whereas we'll pick up a bunch of these laws, right? Like Matt said, we know there's something we need to be obeying. And I don't think there's a whole lot of people in normal Christian church saying we don't have to do anything. I mean, I hear it on the radio all the time, listening to the
Maybe
Christian
some.
channels.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so when we're coming from like the straight line,
Mhm.
big
Traditional.
traditional church understanding, I hear it on the radio all the time, and I literally yesterday morning, maybe it was this morning. I have long days, but but one of the channels was talking about you were made for good works
Mm.
beforehand, right?
Mhm.
And so he went on about how your faith isn't, your salvation isn't based on your works, but your salvation should encourage works in you going forward. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the same thing we say.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
based on this idea of obeying commands and things like that. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I think this goes on, this is a scripture that I had memorized and when I was in Normie church, and I even had this printed out in my classroom for a long time. And this idea that, just like you said, you read verse 4, and then love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. Take to heart these words I give you today. Repeat them to your children. Talk about them when you're at home, when you're away, when you lie down, when you get up. Write them down and tie them as around your wrist and wear them as headbands as a reminder. Write them on the door frames of your houses and gates. And a lot of people literally do that, and they didn't even know really that's what they were doing. They put a sticker on their car, they wore a T-shirt, they wore a bracelet,
put
and
decals on their walls at their house.
yeah, and they may have a cup, their favorite Yeti cup or whatever, and they may have something about Jesus on it or something. And that's a version of this.
You got your WWJD bracelets.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
that.
I am second, all of those are kind of ideas of that you see. And, I think that everybody in both camps, believes you got to teach your children, and it's a 24/7. It's not compartmentalized. Many people have made it compartmentalized, but I would argue you can do that with everything. You can do that in Torah, you can do that in Christianity, you can do. It's easy to do that,
right?
And this is speaking opposite of that. Don't compartmentalize. It should be everything you are,
right? And then that verse 4 there, the Shema, Hear, O Israel, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one, right? And they, the idea is, I mean, that's why the Trinity doctrine is so such a big part of what they do, because they're going to say it's three, but it's one. So you have to kind of, they hold to this, that he is one God. And so it turns, it even bolsters their theology that way.
Yeah.
So they use this as a crux, the meeting point of their, their theological understanding. So,
but yeah, what's interesting is when my son-in-law Laramie was in Egypt, and they were specifically ministering to Muslims. The Muslims all thought the way they described doctrine, way their Trinity doctrine, as polytheistic, is how it came across to them, and they're
Right.
like, "Y'all are crazy," and
Yeah.
and so they didn't even realize that they didn't do their homework, they didn't research how that was seen, and they said things that were offensive right off the bat, and people will just shut them off and like.
Right.
Like, I can't listen to you. You don't even understand this concept of him being one,
Right.
which I thought was real interesting. That
Yeah.
they took the way it's described as being a polytheistic religion, and I think traditional Jews actually see it the same way. They think it's blasphemous the way it's the way it's been explained,
Right.
and I believe incorrectly, but people hold to the things they've heard and what they've been taught, and they just parrot it, and sometimes they don't even know what they're saying.
Right. And I think, there's, I think it is similar to the way that the Jews would reject Messiah because Christianity tells them he did away with the Torah.
That he was lawless.
Right. So it's a similar kind of thing where we take kind of our understanding of the theology and turn it into something that's it's not edible for the people we're trying to reach.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not saying water down the gospel or anything like that. But,
no, but I do think you do your homework and you know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And it's and tell me anything in the world that's not a little bit like that. If you show up and you haven't done your homework on lots of things, you sound like a fool. Especially in what I do in sales and stuff. If you, people, they see through it.
Yeah, and then once you put yourself in that hole, it's hard to gain that trust back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, if you don't know what you're talking about on this, I'm not going to listen to you for the rest of the things. I mean, I'm not going to put a lot of stock in it.
Yeah. And then this one in 13 says, you must fear Yahweh your Elohim, serve him, take your oaths only in his name, never worship any gods, worship by the people around you. And I think, most people, we've said it several times in this series, very few Christians are out there going, hey, we should build idols. Now, yes, sometimes, our Catholic friends may be guilty of some of those things, but for the most part, people aren't building statues
on purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you can argue the cross, and we did have that comment in our thing in our discussion last week. But yeah, I think this whole thing about oaths, you see Yeshua speak pretty harshly to oaths too, and you have to,
Yeah, I think again, when you're doing it in ignorance, I think it hurts Yah's heart, but I don't think it comes out of the realm of covered by Yeshua's sacrifice. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because the sacrifice is for willful sin,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if I'm ignorantly sinning, that's the kind of thing that's covered.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah, I was admiring the sunset behind us. Kind of see it there for a second.
16.
Yep.
Never test Yahweh your Elohim as you did at Massa. Be sure to obey the commands of Yahweh your Elohim and the regulations and laws he has given you. Do what Yahweh considers right and good. Then things will go well for you, and you will enter and take possession of that good land which Yahweh promised to your ancestors with an oath. You will see Yahweh expel your enemies as he said he would. You want me to keep going?
Well, I think this concept, was used in early America, even with the Western expansion movement, and they would apply this principle to the indigenous population that was here, that he was driving them out, and they were supposed to have this land. But right or wrong on the interpretation, I do believe that they justified things they did with the scripture.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this before, but most land that was owned historically has been from conquest. So
yeah,
it's kind of worked that way for every people group.
Yeah.
Scroll back up. There was something else I wanted to mention here. Oh, yeah, the idea of doing what Yah considers right and good. I hear a lot of if you especially if you look back at our episode on who said it, Christian normie or Torah follower, and I won't spoil it for you, but a lot of the discussion in there, you'll see, Christian normie saying, we need to do what Yah says is right, not what we think is right, So that idea is, ingrained in the mindset of Christian normie. It was ingrained in me, and that's why when I saw these other things that Yahweh was considering right and good, I was like, oh, well, I learned that I should consider what he thinks is moral and just ahead of what I think is moral and just. So if he says it, it's more important. So that actually, knowing that as a Christian normie helped me to understand Torah and come to Torah. And then I'll do 20 there. In the future, your children will ask you, what do these regulations, laws, and rules which Yahweh your Elohim commanded you mean to you? Tell them, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, but Yahweh used his mighty hand to bring us out of there. Right before our eyes, Yahweh did miraculous signs and amazing things that were spectacular, but terrible for Egypt, Pharaoh, and his whole family. Yahweh led us out of there to bring us here and give us this land he promised to our ancestors with an oath. Yahweh our Elohim commanded us to obey all these laws and to fear Yahweh. These laws are for our own good as long as we live, so that he will preserve our lives. It's still true today. This is how we'll have Yahweh's approval, if we faithfully obey all these laws in the presence of Yahweh our Elohim as he has commanded us. This part is kind of funny because every time I read through this now, it's still true today, I always kind of emphasize that a little bit. It's still true today.
Yeah.
Not just at the time of Moses writing it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think most people, both camps, believe it's to your benefit to keep the rules and regulations that the Father gave us. Sometimes the definition of that varies. And then 7, it goes, Yahweh your Elohim will bring you to the land you're about to enter to take possession of it. He will force many of the nations out of the way, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, 7 nation army, larger and more powerful than you. When Yahweh your Elohim gives them to you to defeat, destroy every one of them because they've been claimed by the Lord. Don't make any treaties with them or show them any mercy. I think also to a certain extent, Jake and I had a study recently called the Seed War, and we talked about this. It was kind of interesting, called the Sabbath Lounge Seed War. But this idea of him, forcing all these people out of your way, once again, makes me think of what happened to the natives here in the U.S., and a lot of people feel like he forced them out of their way. And they did kind of have this, didn't show them mercy. So there was many people that had that philosophy with them. And anyway.
Yeah, especially when you look at like the Aztecs and when they were, when the Spanish arrived on the coast and they see, big pyramidal structures of human sacrifice temples.
Yeah.
They're like, this needs wiped out.
Yeah.
And
this is bad.
And that sounds like something that Yah typically would wipe out.
Yeah, totally does.
So if you've ever seen, now I'm going to blank on the name. What's the Mel Gibson movie?
It's Apocalypse.
Apocalypto, yeah. That's it's basically Rambo, but natives.
Yeah. Well, that story, when I used to teach kids about this, I would tell them, Cortez gets off the boat down there in what would be Mexico, and they're like, ooh, they're kind of like the aliens from Toy Story is how I always pictured it. And they're like, oh, this is the prophecy. The man would come from the east and be wearing shiny clothes as he's wearing this shiny hat. And they bow down and like, oh, you're our God. And he sits there just for a second. It's like, yeah, I am. I am that guy. Yes. Yeah. And he basically lives like a king, and they serve him and wait on him hand and foot, and then eventually they start getting wise and they start realizing
Wait a
he
minute here.
wasn't what they thought, and then he starts killing them. So
Yeah.
pretty crazy story.
Yep. And that's how we have the wheel today.
That's right. How the wheel and fire came about.
That's right.
All right, let me switch back to this one.
All right. 7 there. Yahweh set his heart on you and chose you, even though you didn't outnumber all the other people. You were the smallest of all nations. You were chosen because Yahweh loved you and kept the oath he swore to your ancestors. So Yahweh used his mighty hand to bring you out. He freed you from slavery under Pharaoh. Keep in mind that Yahweh your Elohim is the only Elohim. He is a faithful El who keeps his promise and is merciful to thousands of generations of those who love him and obey his commands. So we kind of talked about this a little bit last time on the merciful to thousands of generations who love him and keep his commands. And it's that, I think if we didn't as a body believe that Yahweh was merciful, what are we even doing?
Yeah, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
Yeah, wasting your time. Thankfully, he is, and then that's a great prayer, like we talked about last time, to pray that over your generation, over your lineage, because you're praying scripture that he means for you and is possible when we live right, just like he described there. We get that promise.
Yeah, I think too. On the the merciful tract, still, I think we tend to have a very kind of selfish understanding of this relationship, because we think we're owed something, and really we're owed he owes us absolutely nothing. And he, it's by his mercy alone that we're even allowed to take another breath. So at any time that can be snuffed out. And I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Well, it's just like when you're a kid and you gave your dad smack or something, and he's like, "Whoa, are you paying the bills around here? You got the insurance, you got the gas. When you start making some of those decisions, then you can have a say."
Yeah, and it's like so someone at my Bible study back in Pennsylvania, and I've talked about this many times, but that group of guys was pretty awesome. And the one guy who he was kind of I don't know, we didn't really have a leader per se. I mean, we kind of did. He kept things organized, but one of the guys that would, he would talk, fairly often about, he would give a presentation, I guess, if you will. It's kind of the way it was set up. Is one guy would do a day, and then anyway, he was one of the standard, like I'll do a day of teaching, if you will. Anyway, his young daughter had cancer and died, and it was tragic. And I went to the funeral, and I had only known him for, I don't know, a couple months at that point. But I went to the funeral, and what he said there, touched me so deeply, because he was like, yes, my daughter died, and that's painful and terrible, but what do I have to complain about? It's not like I was owed her. I wasn't owed anything. And but I did have that time with her, and he didn't even owe me that much, but at least I got that, and it was just a good testimony of realizing where you are in the relationship. And he is Yah and you are not. Yeah. And so I think about that a lot when I think this concept of mercy, and realizing he literally does not owe me anything.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And then he goes on to speaking of obeying the commands and laws and rules I'm giving you today. If you listen to these rules and faithfully obey them, Yahweh your Elohim will keep his promise to you and be merciful to you as he swore to your ancestors. He will love you, bless you, and increase the number of your descendants. He will bless you with children. He will bless you with land that produces grain, new wine, and olive oil. He will bless your herds with calves, your flocks, and lambs and kids. This will all happen in the land Yahweh will give you, as he swore to your ancestors. You'll be blessed more than any other people. Your men and women will have children, and your animals will be able to have offspring. Yahweh will keep you from having any kind of illness. He will not strike you with any of the terrible diseases you experienced in Egypt. Instead, he will strike all those who hate you. This is definitely something we like to claim. We want to want to think about. We want that for sure, but also this is pointing forward to an idea of heaven, where we get this, and it's going to be this perfect place, and we're not going to get sick, and we're going to have plenty. There won't be famine, but anyway, it's definitely a beautiful passage. It doesn't say we're promised a lot of money,
right?
And so I think that's why sometimes if you pray for money, you might be praying out of his will, because if you pray for the things like this that he blesses you with, which grain and wine and olive oil, that's the staples.
Yeah.
The staples of life to make meals, and then animals, which is like meat.
Yep.
So
you'll have food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So do we actually look at those things as, hey, this is a blessing that I even get to eat my meal today?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. This last month has been really expensive, with lots of things failing, from appliances to air conditioners to a vehicle. And, when all that crashes, you're just like, oh my gosh, what else can break here? But in the end, you're like, I'm very thankful for modern conveniences.
Yeah.
Because this is an amazing life we get to live. And the people back in this day would be like, you what?
You just sit there and stuff blows air on you.
and you get in this thing and you go for thousands of miles. I had to walk across that, and you can go there in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing.
Matt drives pretty fast. So.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Oh.
All right. You may say to yourselves, these nations outnumber us. How can we force them out? Don't be afraid of them. Remember what Yahweh your Elohim did to Pharaoh and all of Egypt. You saw with your own eyes the terrible plagues, the miraculous signs, and the amazing things Yahweh your Elohim did. He used his mighty hand and powerful arm to bring you out. Yahweh your Elohim will do the same thing to all the people you're afraid of. Yahweh your Elohim will spread panic among them until they all die. Interesting. There will be no one left, not even those who were hiding from you. Don't be afraid of them, because Yahweh your Elohim is with you. He is a great and awe-inspiring El. That makes me think of is what do you I think a lot of people, when they picture the idea of the Exodus, do you think of Charlton Heston?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a common image.
Or Prince of Egypt.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But I guess my point is that all of the imagery, for better or worse, but the reason we typically know about this stuff, the reason the culture knows about this stuff, is because standard church Christianity thought it important to make things that build it up and expose it to people that don't read their Bibles. It wasn't necessarily, I don't see a huge, now we have the Life Network, which is fantastic, and they're putting stuff out there that will affect the culture. But most of this stuff has had to been done by your church friend, who, once you come out of that, now we think, oh, those evil pagans, right? That I was stuck into that cult, right? But they're the reason that anyone even knows about what you're learning right now.
Yeah.
So, so, when I think about that, I think I should respect kind of where I came from, because and he says it over and over again here. You were slaves in Egypt.
Yeah.
And so don't turn your nose up at the Egyptians, because you were a slave in Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and this makes me think of this last week's Torah portion, and I don't know when you're listening to this, but it's the spies. And, the spies, Scripture tells you what was happening with the giants right here. And I believe that the giants were fearful of them, because you see it with Rahab later, because you see her talk about, we've heard about you guys.
Right,
you guys have been doing some crazy stuff over there, and he did that. And I feel like those giants had some fear about what they saw in those Israelites, but the Israelites, what they were looking at is they were looking at how they thought the giants saw them,
right?
Because they put words in the giants' mind or mouth that maybe weren't there when they say we are small in their eyes, but they don't know that, but they think that, and that was the problem. And basically, it's almost like that old self-fulfilling prophecy of, if you think something, then that is what you are.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like this. So my brother and I grew up wrestling each other all the time. And it's funny because, you start telling stories about, reminiscing and things like that. And come to find out, we can picture specific times we wrestled for like serious wrestling, like really trying to one up the other person. And when we're reminiscing about that same story and how we remember it, I'll say, man, if you didn't tap out, I was about to, you know what I mean? And he's saying the same thing about me. And it's like, but you didn't know that. You didn't see that in the other person, that they were just about to give up. And if you would have only held on a little bit longer, you would have overcome them. And it's that kind of idea, I think, that you're talking about, where they see these giants and they look at their own weakness and say, I can't overcome it. Whereas the giants are like, we can't overcome these people because they have Yah with them. So they're kind of coming at it at the same way, looking at their own weaknesses instead of, the seeing the other person's weakness, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And we don't know exactly what they thought, but I do think it makes sense that because of the Scripture, that we just read, that he was doing that back then.
Yeah, and I think your point about Rahab telling them, we know all about you people.
Yeah. And that's mentioned more than once in Scripture where that's said.
Yeah. So I think we're here at 24. He will hand their kings over to you, and no one on earth will ever remember their names. No one will be able to stop you. You will destroy them all. Burn their idols. Don't ever long for the silver and gold on these idols, or take any of it for yourselves. It might be a trap for you. Besides, these idols are disgusting to Yahweh your Elohim. Never bring a disgusting idol into your house. If you do, you and the idol will be destroyed. Consider it detestable and disgusting, and must be destroyed. And then they immediately find this out, that he was serious when he said this.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. But the idolatry thing keeps coming up over and over. But like we said, we think most people agree. Don't go find idols.
Right.
And then in 8, be careful to obey every command I'm giving you today. Then you'll live, and your population will increase. You will take possession of the land that Yahweh promised to you, your ancestors, with an oath.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of this nowadays, where I believe Christian families are, some of the more populated families. They're having the most children. Now, maybe not compared to the Muslims, but But in terms of, other people groups, I think they take this seriously and thinking that, the only way to spread the right, the moral code of Scripture is to have more Bible believing children, and then that's the way it works. So I think the church does understand that concept.
Yeah, definitely did.
Yeah,
but it may be slipping. I think that that in recent years it is slipping, and then it's a cultural thing. I think that's affected it, where so many young people who don't have a strong belief, or it's just not real, and they look at the world and go, I can't bring a child into this mess, and they choose.
It's like that's why it's a mess.
Yes, and they choose not to have children or stuff. And I interact with so many people my age that have children, having children, or should be having children, and you can hear it in the disappointment on that grandparent's face when they're like, "Yeah, I don't think I'll ever have grandkids. I have grand dogs, but not grandkids." And I mean, they're not only are they depriving themselves of a blessing, but also their parents, and it's kind of selfish. It's mostly about keeping more money and more things and having free time,
which is a me first mentality.
Yeah. These young couple would rather, have cash to go do and travel and all that, and they don't want to be burdened down by the baggage of a child, which is sad. They don't understand what they're walking away from.
Yeah, because it's not like you can't have those kind of things, except with people that love you and will, that you can, pour your life into. And then when you're looking back at your memories, it's like, oh, I went there by myself. How awesome. Or you could have the memory of, I went there with my children and it was amazing. Even if it wasn't amazing, just the fact that your children were there made it amazing.
Yeah.
And I think too, with the population increase thing, I know we look a lot at the repopulation rate, right? And I think we're at, what are we, like 2.1, something like that?
Barely replacing ourselves.
Right.
Less than that in Europe. I think y'all are at 1.7 or something.
Yeah. But that looks dire. But when you break that up into, when you look at the specific people groups of the, demographics of the society, I believe Christians are way ahead of that number.
Yeah.
So that number is low, but it's low because there's a lot of people that are shouting their abortions and things like that, and don't care for children, and have the mindset of the destruction of the family unit, the nuclear family unit, the biblical family unit. So yeah, that's a bad number, but it's not telling the whole story.
Yeah.
So there's good news inside that yet, I think.
I remember that for 40 years, Yahweh Elohim led you on a journey to the desert. He did this in order to humble you and test you. He wanted to know whether or not you'd wholeheartedly obey his commands. So he made you suffer from hunger and fed you with manna, which neither you nor your ancestors seen before. He did this to teach you that a person cannot live on bread alone, but on every word that Yahweh speaks. And so, the end of this definitely catches your attention, because many people quote the scripture and they have no idea this was first said in Deuteronomy. So that's interesting too. And I think most people buy into the fact that Yah tests them, that's part of this journey. So I don't think that's uncommon.
Yeah, that's that whole concept is powerful. I was going to bring up, when we were first reading through this, there's a Mark Schultz song called 40 Days, and it's 40 days out in the desert, right? But I mean, that's talking more Moses up on the hill. Mm-hmm. So when I first read this, I was like, oh yeah, that reminds me of that song. But hey, check it out if you want.
Okay.
It's a pretty good song. And then learn this lesson by heart. Yahweh your Elohim was disciplining you as parents discipline their children. Obey the commands of Yahweh your Elohim, follow his directions, and fear him.
Yeah.
I feel like I know that by heart. The idea that he's like a parent disciplining his children, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think people embrace that.
And then Yahweh your Elohim is bringing you into a good land. It is a land with rivers that don't dry up. There are springs and underground streams flowing through the valleys and hills. The land has wheat and barley, grapevines, figs, trees, and pomegranates. The land has honey and olive trees for olive oil. The land will have enough food for you, and you will have everything you need. The land has rocks with iron ore, and you will be able to mine copper ore in the hills. When you have eaten all you want, thank Yahweh your Elohim for the good land he has given you.
Is this like a Rock Candy Mountain? Do you know that song?
No, but there was a thing going on. It's probably inappropriate. I don't remember the details of it, but there was this thing back in, I think it was when I was in high school. So we're thinking back in like 2000, late 90s, early 2000s. So, and it's this unicorn going to Candy Mountain. Candy Mountain, Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone remembers that, put it in the comments. I don't remember anything else about it. This unicorn going to Candy Mountain. And someone named Charlie.
Mm-hmm. The song of the cops have wooden legs and the bulldogs have rubber teeth. So, and then the hens will lay soft-boiled eggs. The farmer's trees are full of fruit, and
well, that actually sounds good.
Yeah. The farmer's trees are full of fruit, and the barns are full of hay. And I'm bound to go where there ain't no snow, where the rain don't fall and the wind don't blow, in the Big Rock Candy Mountains. So,
is this a real place?
No, made famous by "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Gotcha.
Anyway, but definitely that is kind of where they get that idea. So I think many people have written songs like this, and people have this idea of heaven for sure. You know, it's going to be this great place where everything you have, everything you could want, it's going to be there.
Yeah. I think, let's see, the land will have enough food for you and you'll have everything you need. Yeah. That's a big talking point in churches is, you know, Yahweh will take care of your needs. God takes care of your needs, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily all your wants, but
yeah.
We talked about this before too, with the birds of the air and the you know, fish of the sea, takes care of those, the flowers of the field. So there's that concept here as well. And is there, I could be getting this wrong, but is there a concept that the Nephilim came down and taught us how to mine?
I've seen that before.
I don't know that makes a whole lot of sense with this verse, because Yahweh's telling them, hey, I gave you these things so that you can mine them. Right? Also, they would need to get gold for all the things they had to make, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. It mentions ore and copper. And petroleum is not mentioned here, but I think you could put that in this list.
They just pulled that out of the tar pits.
That's right.
With Fred Flintstone.
And then 11 says, be careful that you don't forget forget Yahweh your Elohim. Don't fail to obey his commands, his rules, his laws I'm giving you today. You will eat all you want. You will build nice houses and live in them. Your herds, flocks, silver, gold, everything else you have will increase. When this happens, be careful that you don't be arrogant and forget Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of slavery in Egypt. He was the one who led you through the vast and dangerous desert, a thirsty, arid land with poisonous snakes and scorpions. He was the one who made the water come out of solid rock. He was the one who fed you in the desert with manna, which your ancestors had never seen. He did this in order to humble you and test you, but he also did this so things would go well for you in the end. You may say to yourself, I became wealthy because of my own ability and strength. But remember, Yahweh, your Elohim, is the one who makes you wealthy. He's confirming the promise which he swore to your ancestors. It's still in effect today. I warn you today that if you forget Yahweh, your Elohim, and follow other gods, if you serve them and bow down to them, you will certainly be destroyed. Yahweh is going to destroy other nations as you enter the land. You'll be destroyed like them if you don't obey Yahweh, your Elohim.
Yeah. So, what was I thinking on this one? Oh, the idea that Yahweh provides, and there was, let's see, herds and flocks. Oh yeah. So the increase comes from Yah, and I think that I was taught that, and I believe Matt was taught that.
Yeah.
And the idea of thinking that you made yourself better instead of Yahweh making you, putting you in a better position.
Yeah, that's a dangerous position to be in. That became like the guy who was rich and built the bigger barns, he humbled that guy because he had way too much confidence in his flesh.
Yeah, and I think you see that a lot with kind of America's trajectory.
Yeah.
We became full of bread and then forgot that how we got here.
We definitely camp out on this.
And I think we've seen some of the pains that come with forgetting that.
And I think we part ways, but I'd say most of Christianity parts ways with this too, with some of the prosperity gospel people who are like, well, if you're poor, it's because you don't have enough faith.
Right.
You're not, it's, or something along those lines, or you're not living right, or something along those lines. And some of those things could be true, but
not necessarily.
But not necessarily, yeah. But I do think it's hard not to look through some of these with Western lenses, and put certain values and things on here that maybe not present in there. But definitely it comes back to the testing, and that's the second time here it's mentioned, and it goes back to the idols too. And if you're going to act like that, you're going to get destroyed, which is pretty harsh.
Yeah, and I think you brought this up earlier too. The idea that I'm not thinking about it now. I've forgotten. It was important though, so I'll try to put it in the comments.
Okay. And then 9 here, your turn.
All right. Realize today that Yahweh your Elohim is the one who is going ahead of you like Esh Okla. He will wipe them out and will use you to crush their power. You will take possession of their land and will quickly destroy them as Yahweh promised you. When Yahweh your Elohim expels these people in front of you, don't say to yourselves, because we've been living right, Yahweh brought us here to take possession of this land. No, it's because these nations are so wicked that Yahweh is forcing them out of your way. It's not because you've been living right or because you're so honest that you're entering to take possession of their land. It's because these people are so wicked that Yahweh your Elohim is forcing them out of your way. It's also because Yahweh wants to confirm the promise he swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So understand this. It's not because you've been living right that Yahweh your Elohim is giving you this good land to possess. You are impossible to deal with. And the thing that I remember what it was you were saying was that idea of, he doesn't call the, how's it go? He doesn't call the chosen.
He doesn't call the qualified.
Yeah.
But he qualifies the called.
Right. Yeah. That idea.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I butchered that.
Well, Yeah. Well, and it goes back to, to me, this is one of the most beautiful pieces of scripture in Deuteronomy is right here, 9:4-6, because I think many people they have a different connotation. I think sometimes both camps can think a certain way about the people back. They had it figured out. They had the priesthood and they were doing all this stuff, but none of that made them right.
Right.
He says, don't you for a minute think that you have done anything to deserve this. In fact, you are ridiculous. And I barely understand why I'm putting up with you. And so, I mean, he's, it's kind of harsh in some ways. But he's making it clear that it's because these other people are so evil that I'm definitely sick of them, and you got to take them out. Which also is interesting too, to think that he does have clearly, people talk about are there levels of disobedience, and I think the scripture kind of points that there are levels to disobedience, and the Israelites are in a little bit better place because he's not wiping them out
yet.
Yeah. And but he is these other people. So
I do think that would be something that we kind of depart ways on, because I hear a lot in, from Christian church that, well, one sin is as good as another. If you've sinned in it, well, they'll pull a verse. Then you've broken them all, and then they use that to say every sin is the same. But there were sins that required death penalty, and some sins didn't.
Some things basically is like you're unclean till evening or something. But
I feel like that's a lesser punishment than death, right?
Yes, it does seem to be that way.
I'd rather
or got to be excluded for the people for a little bit or something. Yeah,
I think I'd rather be confronted with that. That punishment than the other. So
yeah.
This is interesting too. I think that
and also the one thing I was going to say before you do that is this is grace. This is a great example of just flat out grace. And so people will say, there's no grace in the Old Testament. It's all hellfire and brimstone. Actually, no, there's tremendous grace. And this is one of those very easy passages that clearly says it is by, does it say it's by my grace? No, but I think you can read
definition.
You can read between the lines, and it's defining grace.
Right. And like you said, that idea that you're just put forth there is the concept we brought up earlier about thinking you're owed something. When you think you're owed something, you look back at this stuff and go, oh, he's mean and vengeful God, right? It's because you think you were owed something that you have that feeling about him.
Yeah.
And then we kind of brought this up, I think it was last week, on the idea that is how we're as a country, America is kind of coasting off the fumes of a better generation kind of thing, that idea, and the blessings going out to 1,000 generations kind of thing. So we're riffing on that idea. And then, at the end of that, we said, well, it can be that, or Yah is sharpening America to use as an axe to wield against something more nefarious. So that's this concept here. You aren't great. However, I need you to fulfill a purpose, and I'm going to go stomp someone. You're going to be the belt buckle that I punish the children with.
Yeah.
That kind of deal.
Yeah.
Yahweh also said to me, I've seen these people and they are impossible to deal with. Leave me alone. I'll destroy them and wipe their name off the earth. Then I'll make you into a nation larger and stronger than they are. So this is Yahweh talking to Moses, and Moses is, this is where he's kind of telling us, hey, I'll start over with just you if you're interested in that, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this is that 40 days in the desert kind of situation.
But I think that this is preached in the church community at large, that they acknowledge that, yeah, we're impossible to
They're
deal with.
stiff-necked people.
You know, we're ridiculous and it's our sin. You know, they do say things like that, which we agree.
Yeah, I think where I would kind of diverge a little bit on that, and did more so kind of initially in my turn to Torah. Let me explain that a little better. So when I initially came to Torah, the chasm between me and church on this was wide, and I believe it's narrowed from there. But the idea that because the church understanding is you're sinful, you bring nothing to this relationship, and there's not a you part, it's all him, right?
Yeah.
Whereas,
too far the other way.
Yeah. Whereas, you know, then you jump in and we're like, no, he says, go and sin no more. Would he give you a command you can't follow? So the idea that, well, we can go without sinning. But maybe, you know, I guess my position now would be we can, as long as we are constantly leaning on Messiah to carry us through. Right. And we talked about, you know, he'll carry me through last week. And so that idea of him carrying you through the temptations of sin and things like that. So you can go without sinning, but for how long? And it's only based on you leaning on Messiah. Whereas I think the church leans toward, well, it's impossible. You can't do it. You know what I mean? So I think there is some daylight there in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And then down to 9:27. Remember your servants Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Disregard the stubbornness, wickedness, and sin of these people. Otherwise, the country we left will say Yahweh wasn't able to bring them to the land that he promised them. He hated them. That's why he brought them out, to let them die in the desert. They are your people. They belong to you. You used your great strength and powerful arm to bring them out of Egypt.
Yeah, and a lot of this powerful arm talk is a foreshadowing of Messiah, a pointing to the positioning of Messiah.
Yeah, and arguably he was there and part of the process when they go out. He, think he helped somehow. But
yeah, this is we kind of covered this. This is
I feel like we've said this. Yeah.
This is Moses. This in the last verse we read are key to why Moses is able to write. Moses was the humblest man that lived because he had the opportunity for Yah to wipe these guys out and start over with Moses and bring Moses into the promised land. And he's like, not without the people.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think that Yahweh ever intended to take Moses into the promised land himself without the people. I believe when he has these kind of conversations with Moses and Abraham and things like that, I believe he's kind of testing them so they know where they stand with Yahweh.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, it's not like he's learning something about them in that.
He kind of is seeing where they are.
Yeah, and he's doing it in a way so that they recognize where they are.
Yeah,
he's giving them a chance to live up to what Yahweh wants them to be.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Okay, I'll do chapter 10, verse 4. Yahweh wrote on these tablets the same words as before, the 10 commandments. He had spoken these words to you from the fire on the mountain on the day of the assembly. Then Yahweh gave them to me. I came back down the mountain and put the tables in the ark I had made. They are still there where Yahweh commanded me to put them. Yeah.
I think everybody
10 commandments.
One has an issue with that.
We talked about this last week too, about 10 commandments in schools, all that stuff. The church pushes for that.
And we're getting close to the end here. So Thank you for sticking with us here, but the end is in sight.
It's nigh.
Mhm.
The end is nigh.
And so this in 10:12, Israel, what does Yahweh your Elohim want to do? Yahweh your Elohim wants you to fear him, follow his directions, love him, worship Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and all your soul. I mentioned that just earlier. Yahweh wants you to obey his commands and laws I'm giving you today for your own good. Remember that the sky, the highest heaven, the earth, everything in it contains belongs to Yahweh your Elohim. Yahweh has set you apart on has set his heart on your ancestors and loved them. Because of this, he chooses you, their descendants, out of all the people of the world. So, this concept of being chosen, that's said a lot in church. That he chose you. So, I mean, that comes straight out of what you would hear in typical Sunday morning church service. Just recently, I think I heard that in a church service I was at.
Did you read this part?
I haven't read that part yet. So,
okay.
And then loving him with all your heart, soul, and mind, which is repeated. And many people know that from the New Testament and don't realize, once again, that's the second time we've basically read that same piece in Deuteronomy. And so I think it's always good to point those things out to people.
Right. And then when we were reading through this verse 12, it made me think of this verse, Ecclesiastes 12:3. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Elohim and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. And that's, I think, a pretty common verse for Torah followers to go to.
Yeah.
But he's kind of saying the same thing right here.
Mm-hmm.
So I that's probably where he's pulling that from.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say that scripture was quoted with my agrarian relatives growing up. My great grandparents on both sides, that was common for them to think that way.
Yeah. All right. I'll do chapter 10, verse 16 through the end here. So circumcise your uncircumcised hearts and don't be impossible to deal with any longer. There is no one like Yahweh, your one true Elohim and Adonai. He is the great, powerful, and awe-inspiring El. He never plays favorites and never takes a bribe. He makes sure orphans and widows receive justice. He loves foreigners and gives them food and clothes. So you should love foreigners because you were foreigners living in Egypt. Fear Yahweh your Elohim, worship him, be loyal to him, and take your oaths in his name. He is your glory. He is your Elohim, who did for you these spectacular and awe-inspiring deeds you saw with your own eyes. When your ancestors went to Egypt, there were 70 of them. Now Yahweh your Elohim has made you as numerous as the stars in the sky. There's so much.
I want all that.
We say this
every
time we read through anything in Deuteronomy. Mm-hmm. It's like there's so much in that section of verses right there.
Yeah, for sure.
I think key among them, circumcise your uncircumcised heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a New Testament concept. The circumcision of importance is the circumcision of the heart, and that's what Paul's saying. If your heart is not circumcised, your flesh means nothing.
Yeah, and I think people in regular Christian circles would often argue that the circumcision that we are familiar with, they would say, well, that was in the flesh, it was wrong. But he said in Deuteronomy, it was about the heart.
Right.
All along that it was about circumcising the heart. And it was just a physical act that reflected what was happening internally.
Right.
And, I think that's interesting. And then another thing interesting, maybe slightly off topic, but take your oaths in his name. It makes me think of the scripture that talks about how a man can nullify his wife's word.
Right.
And in essence, that is what happens to all of us. If we speak, he can nullify anything we say because he's got that final authority over any word that we might give. And so to me, when I read this, I'm like, it kind of ties back to what Yeshua said, why, don't
make an oath.
Yeah. In your own name, you can't keep it and it doesn't mean anything. But when you line up with him and his name, then that's something that can be done. because he's not going to fail.
Yeah, that's interesting. The here he's saying, the command being that you can nullify the wife's vow, and then Messiah comes and tells his bride, don't make an oath. So he's essentially nullifying the vow of the bride.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had never thought about it that way until you just said that. So I don't know if there's anything necessarily to that. I don't know if that's necessarily what he's doing or symbolizing there, but that's a side of it I had never actually thought about.
Yeah, it kind of hit me when we were reading that, and I thought that was an interesting thing to think about for sure. It does make sense. It just is you're promising, writing checks that you can't pay for. So our oath doesn't mean a lot, but his do. So, and I think it goes back to when you make oaths that are consistent, backed up with scripture, and in his name, you're basically just reading back scripture.
Yeah.
In essence, because he does make oaths, and when you read those back and confirm them and state those, he's the promiser of that oath.
Right.
And we know he's going to fulfill it.
Right.
It is interesting.
So I kind of wanted to touch on something just because I feel like it could, if I was me watching this is what would stand out to me. So earlier he said he doesn't owe us anything, right? I made a whole spiel about him not owing us anything. And now you're saying he's made these promises to us. So he does owe us something. So on the surface,
but it is a reciprocal.
Right. So on the surface, I understand how that seems contradictory. That's why I want to explain why it isn't. Because he didn't owe us the promises. He gave us the promises as an act of mercy anyway. He did not owe us the promises. So,
well, we were deserving of death, unfortunately.
Right. And also
that's what we deserve.
Right. And also we've broken all the things that would give us the promises. So that's why we need to lean on Messiah.
Yeah. It's only in his grace and mercy that he owes us anything. It's because his word, and it has nothing to do with us living right and doing all the right things.
Right.
Because generally we're pretty lousy at that.
Yeah. So hopefully you see the nuance between he doesn't owe us anything and he's made these promises that he'll provide things. So there is nuance there to what we're describing, and I just hope we explained it well enough.
Yeah, well, and we don't claim to have a corner on the truth or know everything. And life is messy, and trying to figure out these things there's a lot of black and white, and then there's a lot of gray, and then there's a lot of I don't know.
There's a lot of both and situations with Yahweh. And then we talked about the numerous as the stars in the sky last time, right? He's saying again how this promise was fulfilled. This promise to Abraham that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. He says now he has made you as numerous as the stars in the sky. That to me, that sounds like fulfilled.
And I think I also saw that in The Lion King one time.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
They thought they were balls of gas burning far away, though.
Yeah. That's right. Well, we're going through this episode of Christians Follow Torah, and this is in Deuteronomy. This is episode 9, and there'll be more, and we'll continue to roll through this until we get through Deuteronomy. We ask you to do a couple things. If you would sign up, put your email in, get the free ebook, maybe give us some feedback too, and then also there's the ebook,
the voice message,
and the voice message. Yeah.
Yep.
So please be our guest and leave us a message, and we will work you into the show somehow. Unless you say, don't play this.
Yeah. Then we'll just hold on to it for our own bemusement.
Yes.
And then, so check out Sabbath Lounge on all the platforms that you visit. and give it a like, subscribe, and share it with your neighbor. So,
Yeah. Thank you so much for spending this hour and 15 minutes with us. It's an hour and 15. You can't get back. Sorry about that. So
it was a short hour and 15.
That's right. But most of our time was reading scripture. So hopefully that was a benefit to you, and hope that if you don't already love Deuteronomy, hopefully you will after this.
Yes.
But look forward to comments, any questions that you have. Feel free to email us at sabbathlounge at sabbathlounge@gmail.com, and or leave us comments on any of these platforms. We appreciate that, and we read every one.
Yep, and try to respond as best we can.
Yep. All right. Well, Jake, you got anything else?
That's it.
All right. Well, this is Matt
and Jake
signing out.